Greg Brush.
And I'm Mark Weckler.
We're here to talk to you today about backtrolling for Kenai Kings.
Yeah, and Greg and I are part of a program that we started a handful of years ago called Fish for the Future. Fish for the Future is a program that's all about conserving big, wild Kenai and Kasilof River kings. Check us out on fishforthefuture.net. We have a Facebook page where we hold a photo contest, Kenai King Catch and Release photo contest. And then we have an Instagram page as well, so please check us out.
Yeah. Hey, our experience, if you're wondering what we're doing up here, we got roped into this, but we're happy to do it. It's fun. We do have a little experience. Mark's got 25, 26 years of guiding experience on the Kenai River. I have 31 years of guiding experience behind me. This is my 32nd year. So we're certainly not authoritative know-it-alls by any means. There's still a lot to learn. And we're learning something every time we go out there, something new, something exciting. But we do know what we're talking about. We've caught a few Kenai Kings over the decades.
Yep, and Greg mentioned we're talking about backtrolling today specifically, and you'll see that the Kenai River is different than other rivers. When we're talking about fishing for these fish, they're big fish. It's big, deep water, lots of obstacles, and lots of boat traffic sometimes. So we hope by the end of this video, we've given you information enough that you can go out and backtroll up some Kenai King salmon of your own.
Hey, let's talk about backtrolling. This is one of my favorite rods. It's a G. Loomis GL2. That's a good entry-level rod. It's not cheap, but it's a good quality rod, lasts you a lifetime. This particular one is perfect for backtrolling, especially plugs. This is a 10.5 footer, and that sounds like a really long rod, but this is an ideal rod for pulling plugs. K15, K16 quick fish, mag lips, even mag warts. It's a little slower action, lets plug work. Great rod. We like to run them, Mark and I like to run these out the side of the boat. They give you a little more spread, that's why they're 10.5 foot. You get more coverage. You might think about investing in some salmon specific rods and some longer runs, especially if you're going to backtroll. So one thing about backtrolling, if you're not familiar with that method, you're holding the boat against the current. Rods are generally in the rod holder. You can hang on to them if you want. Don't put your thumb on the spool. But most people like to put them in the rod holder. Let them out 50, 55, 60 feet behind the boat. That's where this reel shines. So Mark, show them this reel. This is a Shimano Dakota. The Dakota has an oversized drag system, big gears, great fluid, silky smooth drag. This one in particular is a Dakota 500. It's made by Shimano, obviously. But what's cool about this is a Dakota 500 LC. The LC stands for the line counter. You reset that. The reason this is so great for backtrolling, put your thumb on there, open that release, let it out. Your buddy, your wife, whoever's running the boat tells you go 50, go 55. Let it go to 55, stop it with your thumb, click it close. Line counter's a great feature. Like I said, big gears, big drag, nice line capacity. You do need a lot of line capacity if you're going to fish Kenai Kings. This particular reel for backtrolling is just about as good a reel as you can get. There's some other good ones. Daiwa makes a good reel. Penn. There are some other good reels. Ambassador makes a couple good ones, but this is kind of the Mercedes-Benz in my opinion. We get a lot of questions specifically about mainline. What kind of mainline do we like to use? Not only pound test, but what material. These super lines have become very popular in the last 10, 15 years. Braided line, pros and cons. Some guys love monofilament, some guys love braid. Personally, for me, when I'm backtrolling, I like braid. Braid is zero stretch. It's super small diameter, which allows you to get to the bottom where these fish are. Kenai Kings, as a general rule, are right next to the bottom. Unbelievable breaking strength, which is very important. You don't know what you're going to hook out there. Could be a 30-pounder, could be the new world's record. Every year we have 70-pounders. Go to Fish for the Future and you'll see that we're still catching some 70s every year on the Kenai. But braided line for backtrolling is hard to beat. This is 65-pound Power Pro. We like Power Pro. It's very tight. It's round. It's very limp. It's a great line. Tough Line makes a good line. There's another couple different brands of braid, but this is what we're using for back trolling for Kenai Kings. It's the latest and greatest. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about plug fishing. If we're gonna back troll, we gotta fish plugs, huh? At least put one out there. So leader material, 60-pound test. Okay, I fished 50 forever, and it works and it works good. But when you hook that big one, you're gonna wish you had 60. Trust me, I've had some fish bite through 50-pound test. So leader length, 60-pound test, leader length for plugs as a general rule. Having a heck of a time with this. As a general rule, about 6 foot. Okay, so we're gonna take 6 foot. We're gonna get a little extra on here just to work with, so we have more than enough line. 60-pound test. We're gonna put a number 55 duo snap, Lure Jensen duo snap. They're reliable, they're strong. The 55 is the middle size, works good. One end's gonna be a duo snap. Knots, let's talk about knots. On my snaps, I like a cinch knot. 3 twists, okay? Now you'll notice I only use 3 twists. Always wet your knot before you pull it tight, because you're getting some friction. Friction produces heat. Heat weakens your line, so always spin on them. I like a cinch knot. Pulls straight, it's fast, but only 3 twists. That's because it's 60-pound test, okay? If you're fishing light line for trout, you'd use more twists. Okay, the other end, we're gonna put a high quality crane swivel. Berkeley makes a good one, VMC makes a good one. I like these VMCs. Use a big one. That's a number 1, okay? Number 1, it's rated at 165-pound test. So you're not gonna pull that apart. Okay, so length, leader length. For plugs on the Kenai with Kings, we want about 6 foot. An inch or 2 isn't gonna make a difference. There's 6 foot right there, okay? I'm 5'11", that's 6 foot. Pinch that. You can tie a Palomar. Palomar's great knot. Wackler likes Palomar. So do I. But for leader material, 60-pound, I like a cinch knot. 3 twists. You know when you've tied it right if the tag end makes a complete 90. So there you got it. Leave about an eighth of an inch. You got your swivel, got your duo lock, 6 foot length. That's your leader for pulling plugs on the Kenai. K16, K15. Let's talk about these plugs. Look at this beauty. Look at that. Look at the fish. I don't even know how many kings that's caught. You can see the bill wear is very even. Just a few bite marks on that one. That is a killer Kenai King plug. Okay, let's talk about hooks. That's how Mark and I rig them. A lot of guys will go split ring to split ring. I don't like to do that. They can bind and a crazy fish can twist and leverage out. I like split ring, swivel, and single hook. Don't forget, single hook for Kenai Kings, okay? Regulation. These come with trebles, swap them out. That's our rigging on plugs. Let's talk about hook size, okay? I like Siwash hooks. You can use octopus if you want. I like Siwash, either a 5/0 or a 6/0. Work pretty good. Gamakatsu is hard to beat. There's a lot of good hooks out there. VMC, Mustad, bunch of good hooks. Use whatever you have confidence in. But those work pretty good for plugs.
Okay, so Greg did a really nice job of covering how we're going to rig our leaders for plugs. And I'm going to cover different ways to rig our leaders using spinning glows and cheaters. So the first thing we'll talk about, we mentioned earlier mainline, and mainline being braid, we definitely want to have a monofilament leader. Greg likes 60-pound test. I also like 60-pound test. I think it's just the right size for Kenai River kings. We don't have to worry about kings being line shy on the Kenai. They're not worried about that one bit. So we can go as heavy as we can get away with and still tie knots with it. 60 seems to be about right. So I'm going to tie what we call a hangback version of a spin and glow here. And so I'm going to start with a piece of monofilament. And I always make it extra long here so I have extra to work with in case I need to cut some off. So I got about a 6-foot piece here. I'm going to start with an egg loop. Egg loops are really good knots for tying these leaders with because it's about the strongest knot you'll ever see. I think it actually has a breaking strength higher than the breaking strength of the line itself, or at least that's what I've heard. So tie in a quick egg loop, and we're not going to show you how to tie an egg loop on here step by step. There's lots of YouTube videos for that, but there's one egg loop. Okay, looks pretty good. You know, how many wraps you make around and everything is up to you. I like to get, if I'm not using bait and I'm not going to be actually using the loop for putting bait on, I usually go a little shorter. It allows more exposure of the hook. But if I was going to be using that loop to cinch some bait on there, I might make some extra wraps. So this one at first is going to look like a double egg loop.
Actually, it is a double egg loop, isn't it?
Yep, to start with it is. And you can mess around with your spacing here. It's about right for me. All right, so we've got a double egg loop here, but we're not allowed to use 2 hooks on the Kenai when we're fishing for kings. So what I'm going to do is create what we call a hangback. I know a friend that calls this the amputee. By taking 2 hooks and snipping the front shank off, or not the shank, but the bend, right at the bend here. So I might wear some protective eyewear here. I'm going to do it over here to the side. All right. So now we've got a hook point somewhere in the carpet out there, so watch out for that. And we've got this rig here. What that does is it allows you to put some space between what the fish is going to be biting at and where the actual hook is. So they're going to be coming up from behind, and hopefully if they short bite it a little bit, that hook is hanging back far enough to still get them in the corner of the mouth. All right. When I do if I'm not using a hangback method, I'll maybe use 3 or 4 beads at this point in time, but with the hangback, I'm just going to put 1 bead because I've created all that space already with my extra hook. This is a smaller size spin and glow. We're going to talk more about different sizes of spin and glows, but that's one of the smaller ones that we might use. That bead there is to protect the area between the spinning glow and the hook so that the spinning glow spins really nice. The next one is to protect it from any weeds getting into the spinning glow hole there. You get weeds up in there and then it stops spinning and then you get a bunch of twist in your line and you got problems. So that is a typical hangback or amputee style Kenai River rig there. We got a 7/0 octopus hook here. You can also use big river hooks if you like. I like both. I don't see a huge difference between the two in regards to hookup ratio, but they're both nice hooks. Gamakatsu makes both of those. Now we're going to look at leader length, and you know, you'll talk to 10 different guides on the river, and they'll have 10 different reasonings behind why they do their leaders the length they do. I tend to start earlier in the season when the water's shallower with a little bit shorter leader, and then it gets a little longer and longer as the river grows. With that being said, you might use a longer leader if the water's really clear. You might use a shorter leader if the water's a little dirty. You might use a different size leader based on how much float you have down here on the end. So there's a lot of factors to consider. Usually anywhere from 30 to 40 inches is pretty typical on the Kenai. I think Greg said he likes his around 36 for those big July fish. I like mine somewhere at least 36, maybe even up to 40 for those big July fish. So a couple different ways. You can measure it if you want. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it here. This is probably about a 36-inch leader. I'm going to tie a Palomar at the top. Palomar is the strongest knot you can tie with mono almost, so definitely one to do. Easy overhand knot, and then just bring that loop right over the swivel. As I mentioned, I got lots of extra line here to clip off because I started with a lot. And there you have it. Now, that's just one way to do it. There's a lot of other ways to do it. I've got a couple other rigged up here. This one's with a larger size spinning glow. It's got 3 beads there between the hook and the spinning glow. That creates a little space. It's not quite as much as the hangback method, but it definitely allows a little space between what that fish is biting at and where the hook actually is.
What we're trying to do here, we want that hook back. We're trying to get it to line up. You got to remember that these fish are 20, 30, 40, hopefully they're 50 plus. That's a big jaw, and we need that hook to line up in the corner of the jaw, and that's the whole concept of hangback or extra beads.
Yes, sir. And then this is another one. This one has the big river bait hook. You can tie egg loops on them just the same as you can on the octopus hook. That one also has a big cheater on there, which I'm a big fan of those big cheaters. And we've got a thin twin here. Short Bush Flasher makes one called a Bling Wing nowadays. Both of them are designed the same way. You would slide this on above your cheater or your spinning glow. Sometimes people use cheaters or spinning glows and they'll cut the wings off, and then the wings are reproduced by the thin twin here. And if I was going to do that, I'd probably add 3 or 4 or so beads on here in order to create some space between that wing and your spinning glow or cheater, so they're not running into each other. So lots of ways to do it. Hopefully you learned something on here about the ways to hang your hook back, and that's it for spinning glows and cheaters.
Okay, let's talk about rigging your rod. Mainline riggings. Mark and I like braid. We talked about that. Got some braid here. This is my main line. You can see my rod tip. 65-pound Power Pro. Flatlining. Flatlining just means we don't use a diver. Put a bead on there. Why do we have a bead? Well, bead keeps somebody who's really excited from reeling all the way up into the tip like that and damaging the tip of your expensive rod. So a bead is really cool. Okay. Other thing a bead does, bead works as a knot protector. It slides over your knot, protects your knot. So we're just going to use a Palomar. Palomar is the greatest knot ever invented. Works good with monofilament, works great with braid, doesn't matter. 99% knot strength. Fantastic. Fold your line over. Put it through your duo snap. Uh-oh, I need reading glasses. Hang that. One little overhand. Put whatever you're tying, in this case it's a duo, through your initial loop. That's it. Pull it tight. A little bit of lubricant. Pull it tight. Boom. Leave about 1/8 of an inch. That's it. So that's flatlining. Knot protector. You can see that bead slid over that knot. And a duo snap. That goes straight to your leader, goes to your plug. When would you use flatlining? Early in the season when the water's low and slow. You don't need a diver to get your plug down. Okay. Now let's talk about July. All of a sudden, it's July 15th. Things are going well. Water conditions are good. River's up faster. Let's rig your main line for back trolling. Oh boy, I'm getting old. I need reading glasses. Okay, there we go. So I got a bead on there. Again, that's your tip protector. Show them that, Mark. That's a little slider. It's a little plastic gizmo. Slides up your main line. You can see it's got a small hole for your line. It's got a bigger one clip onto. Slide that on your main line. And then we slide one more bead. Doesn't matter if you use size 8 or size 6 beads. That's up to you. Personal preference. Okay? There it is. We got bead, slider, bead. We tie our Palomar. I'm going to go fast here. Be done with this. Overhand. Reach through your main loop. Duo snap. Little bit of saliva never hurt anything. Trim it off. Okay. Now what is this all about? That's on your main line. That is your slider. Okay, here's something else. A lot of guys they don't want this little plastic jobber, and they just use a swivel. Swivel works fine, okay? This is where your snap, bead chain, snap. This is where your dropper is for your jet diver. I think I'm stealing Mark's thunder in this next segment. There's your dropper. And that, my friends, is going to snap right onto that little slider. And guess what that does? Keeps you in line to your leader over here on my left, your right. That's where your leader is, in line for a good hook set. And it allows this to slide up and down. Boom. Done deal.
Let's take a second here to talk about jet divers. Jet divers, for those who don't know, are the main tool that we use on the Kenai River in order to get our lures down near the bottom where the king salmon live on the Kenai River. When you're using something like a cheater that has no weight at all to it, it actually floats, you need something to get it down there. And when we're back trolling, we don't use weights or anything like that. We use jet divers. So jet divers come in a variety of sizes. This one's a 20, a 30, a 40, and a jumbo. These are the most typical sizes we use. And so let's look at the components of a jet diver here. This is a 20, and this one's just coming out of the package here. And this is how they come from the factory, okay? So in this hand, my right hand here, I have the end that would be attached to the main line. In my left hand here, I have the end that would be attached to the leader. So it comes with this extra snap and swivel down here, okay? And you can use them that way to have them fixed and in line with your main line and leader. More typically though, on the Kenai, we use them with a dropper system. And so what we would do is remove this extra gear on the bottom, the snap and the swivel, and we would add a bead chain and another duo snap up here on the top end that goes to your slider on your main line. So this is what it's going to look like when it's all done. They don't come like this. So you have to build this yourself using the right components. And so you've got your swivel chain. This one's a 6-bead swivel chain. They all come with a larger size snap attached to them. So you use that, you add your bead chain, and then you use a smaller duo snap here that attaches to your mainline slider, which Greg showed in a previous video. And that's nice because if you want to change diver sizes for whatever reason, super easy. You'll have a bead chain like this attached to every one of your divers, and you can just pull that off and then just throw another size on. So the larger size divers, the jumbos, come out of the package like this, and they have a dropper attached to them. Some people might use these droppers on the Kenai, but I think these are designed for other places. On the Kenai, we don't want quite so much drop on our dropper. So we would remove that, add our bead chain, and another snap, like we did on this one here. And the reason for that is that I think on the Kenai River, our king salmon tend not to suspend. They stay right down on the bottom, and so you don't want quite as much elevation on your diver, which would then elevate your lure a little further up off the bottom, and we don't want that. We want to keep it nice and low. Advantages to the slider system is when you hook a fish, that thing, the the diver itself will be able to float back up towards the surface, so it takes some of the fight away so you're not fighting your diver as much. And then also sometimes when they get snagged on the bottom, you're more easily able to remove them. And like if you have to break off something on your main line, this will slide right up off of the main line, float up at the top, and you can go retrieve it. So that's really nice. And I think that is everything for divers on the Kenai River for Kings.
Let's talk about sizes of lures for backtrolling Kenai Kings. With plugs, the largest plug is called a K16. Okay, if it's a Brad's or it's a quick fish, or if it's a flatfish, 16's the biggest. Okay, then's a 15, and of course they go 14, 13. As a general rule, these are the two most popular sizes for Kenai Kings. Okay, that's not to say, before you send me some hate mail, it's not to say that you can't catch a big old Kenai King on a K14 or a K13. You can, okay? But generally, they're these two sizes. Why? Well, for one thing, they're big fish. Big bait, big fish. There's a lot of truth to that. However, the biggest factor is that the Kenai during king season is big, fast, powerful water. And smaller plugs have trouble in big, fast water. So this is a more stable plug, generally, than this. So as the water volume comes up, gets faster, gets deeper, a lot of people are upsizing, okay? So let's talk about winged bobbers. That's what these are. Whether they're a spin and glow or a flash and spin cheater, that's called a winged bobber. What size winged bobber do you fish? That's a tough one. I think, and Mark tends to agree, as a general rule, we're going to go with big, bright, and gaudy, a lot of contrast in that lure. We're going to go with big and gaudy during dirty water conditions, if the water had visibility of 1 to 2 foot, okay, as a general rule. We also, Mylar wings work great. It's hard to beat flashy, bright wings, but we're going to use the biggest size spin and glow possible. If the water were clear, as Mark discussed, we would increase our leader length and we would downsize a little bit, okay? And sometimes, if the water's clear and low, we may even use these little tiny jobbers. There's been quite a few 40, 50, 60 pounders caught on those little spinning glows. However, with that said, you can see if I take that little lure and I put that in front of 2 big 6/0 hooks, we're going to have a problem, okay? These are buoyant. Every one of these is buoyant. The concept is to float that off the bottom and get in a fish's face, okay? If you only have that little lure and you weigh it down with big giant hooks, it's going to sink and you're going to get snagged repeatedly, okay? So you do have to match your hook size with your winged bobber. Make sense? Let's talk about bling wings. This one's been beat up. This one's caught fish. It's not as bright and flashy as it used to be. But these are getting more and more popular, and they can be deadly. Okay, they will be run. You can take. They'll be run with either corkies above and below them, or inverted spin and glow. A lot of guys will take these wings, clip those off. You don't have to clip them off, but this is very popular. They'll clip those wings off. They'll run that inverted. They'll put a bead below it, a bead above it, maybe 2 or 3 beads above it to give it some space. And then they'll put that flashy, clacking, obnoxious bling wing up front. And you do have to have some beads in there, okay? If you put it like that, you're going to have problems. But that is becoming more and more popular, and there's been unbelievable amount of big Kenai Kings caught on that combination. So those are your winged bobbers. your various size for back trolling on the Kenai, match them to water conditions and hook size. Also, if we're blessed with bait, if we get to use bait, remember that bait sinks. So a big old hook and a little spinning glow with a big old gob of bait, that's going to sink and give you snag problems. So either run a smaller piece of bait or upsize to something that's more buoyant like that size.
Okay, so when it comes to salmon fishing, or any type of fishing for that matter, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. But we showed you some of the ways that we like to rig. With that being said, don't be afraid to go out and experiment on your own. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than messing around and finding something that you feel like gives you an extra bite or two. So go play with it and have fun.
Yeah. What we shared with you today, those are all proven riggings. Leader length, all our knots, different various pound tests, pros and cons between braided line, monofilament, hook sizes, all of those are proven. We know they work. We've got hundreds and hundreds of kings between us on the Kenai River, and we think when you take those methods and you apply them and those riggings, you're going to catch more fish. So with that, when you do catch more Kenai kings, we just challenge you, at least consider letting those big fish go. These are big, wild, very special, genetically unique fish, and we just don't have a ton of them, and we need to put those fish on the spawning bed. So if you have to take it home, then so be it, but at least consider letting it go, because bottom line, we all want fish for the future.
We do. We need them on the gravel bed. Thanks for watching.
Yep.